All right, it's my pleasure to introduce the Commissioner of Major League Soccer, Mr. Don Garber.
Thank you very much, Dan, and welcome everybody to Seattle. It's really it's my pleasure to welcome everybody to the 2019 MLS Cup. You know, this is now my 21st MLS Cup, and each of these State of the Leagues, I always want to start by recognizing the fact that we all are operating in a very disruptive media space, and I understand and recognize how complicated it is for all of the media that is supporting our league and supporting our industry, how challenging it is to get your jobs done. We're working hard every day as a league, and I know I speak on behalf of our clubs, to deliver you the access that you need to produce the content that your audience, our fans and our potential fans are looking for, and we are going to continue to make this a priority for our league, league-wide. I have a tremendous sense of pride now that I have just completed my 20th year for everything that our owners, that our league-wide staffs, our players, and most importantly, our fans have contributed and really achieved, both on and off the field. And I couldn't really be more excited about what lies ahead, at least for me, in the years ahead, and leading up to our 25th season in the years ahead for Major League Soccer. And I could spend the next hour or so, or maybe longer, talking about all the incredible growth and the milestones, but we're all here for a game that's going to be played on Sunday and a champion that's going to be crowned, so let's get started talking about that. It was only a matter of time, after 11 straight seasons of qualifying for the MLS playoffs, and that is an MLS record. The Sounders are now hosting their first MLS Cup. And it's fitting that to raise the trophy named after one of our founders, Phil Anschutz, to raise it on their home field, they're going to have to get past Toronto FC. And these clubs, as all of you know, have battled each of the last 4 MLS Cups. It's really an unprecedented rivalry. I think it's almost an unprecedented rivalry for any league, but certainly for Major League Soccer. These two organizations represent the best of our league, both on and off the field. It will be the culmination of what has been a great Audi MLS Cup playoffs. It's certainly the best playoffs we've ever had in the history of our league. Every game, as you all know, is a battle from start to finish, and our fans, as I'll describe in a bit, were more engaged than ever before. Our stadiums were packed throughout the entire postseason as we set a new record for playoff attendance and averaged over 31,000 fans per game, which really is a remarkable stat for our young league. On the viewership front, El Tráfico, featuring LAFC and the LA Galaxy, was the most viewed playoff game in our history on ESPN, and the Atlanta TFC match was the most viewed MLS playoff game ever on FS1. Overall, viewership on our playoffs was up over 30% on both ESPN and Fox. This year's MLS Cup will be televised for the first time on ABC in 11 years. Joining with Univision, TSN, and TVA in Canada, will have the broadest domestic and Canadian distribution ever in the history of our championship match. And similar to previous years, the game will be televised in over 170 countries via the partnerships we have with our international television partners. Seattle and their great supporters really deserved this game. Since day one, the Sounder fans have raised the watermark for our entire league, and the environment on Sunday will represent everything that we set out to build when this league was launched many, many years ago. MLS Cup, as Dan mentioned, sold out in 20 minutes. He also mentioned that we will have a record soccer crowd of nearly 70,000 fans, and it'll also be the highest attended sporting event in CenturyLink Field, and that's something that we just heard this afternoon. Owner Adrian Hanauer mentioned to me yesterday that more than 10,000 people, and I think that number has even grown in the last few hours, are on a waiting list for any available tickets. I want to congratulate the entire Sounders ownership group, led by Adrian, by Jody Allen and Drew Carey. And I'd also like to recognize the new members of the Sounders ownership group, led by Terry and Katie Myerson, by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, by Macklemore and Ciara and Russell Wilson. And by the way, if you don't know, Macklemore will be performing at the March to the Match in Pioneer, right prior to the March to the Match at Pioneer Square. I plan on going to that event. I've gone to one March to the Match many, many years ago. If you haven't been to one, I encourage you to do so. I also want to give a nod to Sounders Chief Soccer Officer Garth Lagaway and their coach Brian Smetzer and their entire technical staff for producing another really great season. A season that caps off one of the best consecutive playoff runs in pro sports history. An amazing stat besides only the San Antonio Spurs and the Pittsburgh Penguins. You know, Toronto FC was our first team in Canada, and the club has played a really important role in growing the game, not only in that country, but throughout the entire region. When Toronto FC, TFC, joined the league in 2007, it began a new era of growth and opportunity for our league, setting the stage for what we describe as MLS 2.0. Their downtown stadium location, their passionate supporters, their fans, set the stage for what Major League Soccer really is today. Team owner Larry Tannenbaum had an amazing run with his partners at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. In the past 2 years, they've won an MLS Cup title. They won an NBA championship. I saw his ring at a meeting yesterday in New York, and they won a CFL Grey Cup. The organization's success is a testament to Larry's leadership and really his passion for sport and his keen eye for talent, both in the boardroom, in his office, but also on the technical side. Under the leadership of Bill Manning, of Ali Curtis, and Greg Vanny, TFC has become one of the top soccer clubs in North America. Let me talk a bit about the 2019 season before we get to questions. It was another record year for us, and the arrival of a new team, the opening of our 20th soccer stadium, several new stadium groundbreakings, a new goal-scoring champion, and a club that was dominant in the regular season, both on and off the field. We announced this year 3 new expansion teams in Austin, in St. Louis, and in Sacramento. We welcomed 2 new ownership groups, the Haslam family in Columbus and Joe Mansueto in Chicago. FC Cincinnati debuted as our 24th team, averaging more than 27,000 fans per game and finishing 3rd in attendance in their first year. They also broke ground on their new stadium, and just this week, a few days ago, I was there for the opening of their new world-class training facility. LAFC set a new regular season record for points. They tied the record for the most goals ever scored by an MLS club, and they extended their consecutive sellout streak to 71 games. Atlanta United followed up their MLS Cup championship of last year with a thrilling win over Club America in this year's Campeones Cup. It was one of the best games that I've attended in my years at Major League Soccer. And that Campeones Cup, as you know, features the champions of MLS and Liga MX. As the partnership between our 2 leagues, Liga MX and MLS, continues to grow, Atlanta's victory in that event was a proud moment for our league. Atlanta United was selected, if you haven't heard, as the sports industry's Team of the Year, and it continues to capture the attention of the global sports world. If you have not been to a game at Atlanta or in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz, it's something you must do. There were several other key milestones this year. Carlos Vela set an MLS record with 34 goals, earning the Golden Boot. He earned the Landon Donovan MVP award, and he led his team to the conference finals in their second season. And as you all know, MLS veteran Chris Wondolowski made history by breaking the MLS all-time record for goals. And while all of us are really pleased to know that Chris is returning in 2020, I want to really acknowledge the great MLS players that are retiring from the game, including Tim Howard, DeMarcus Beasley, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Nick Raimondo, Michael Parkhurst, Tony Beltran, Chris Pontius, and Seattle's own Chad Marshall. It was heartwarming to see the fan reaction to Michael Parkhurst as he walked off the game in his last game in Atlanta just a week ago. I'm really proud of the hundreds of former MLS players who have gone from the playing field to continuing their careers working in MLS and in our sport in a wide variety of roles. Garth Lagerwey, Garth, and Ali are great examples of that. I'm sure that the recently retired players, not just the guys I've mentioned, but many, many more, will find their way back to our league and helping us continue to build Major League Soccer both on and off the field. Some of you might know that recently we hired a gentleman by the name of Jamil Northcutt, a seasoned executive with the NCAA and the National Football League, to lead our new player engagement group. Jamil will work with current and former players to support them with their transitions during their career lifestyle, both how they're managing their lives as their players and then transitioning after they retire and leave Major League Soccer and get on with their lives and their careers. Player development continues to be a major focus for our league throughout our clubs, and our ownership is investing so deeply in facilities, in youth academies, and in the USL. With each season, more young players are making their mark in MLS and choosing our league as a league of choice. It's been a real priority of ours. Our academy players produced more goals, more assists, and played more minutes than any other year in our history. And it's important to note that 7 of the top 9 teams in homegrown player minutes qualified for the playoffs, showing that playing your young players can really help you on the field. A big part of player development is not just what we're doing with our academies and our players, but it's also building and investing in state-of-the-art training facilities. Orlando City SC, FC Cincinnati, and the New England Revolution joined many of our other clubs in opening new training grounds this year, and DC United will open their new complex next year. With the opening just this year of Allianz Field in Minnesota, an absolutely spectacular stadium, another one that you should visit, has led that opening, and the energy behind that team has led the Loons to sell out every single game, and they now have a season ticket waiting list of 6,000. Investments in stadiums and training grounds by our ownership group today totals over $3 billion. And that's excluding NFL facilities like Mercedes-Benz and Centrally Link, which were built with soccer in mind. Add those in, and it totals over $5 billion. That's really an astounding stat when you think that it was 21 years ago that the first MLS stadium ever was built in Columbus. We broke ground this year on new stadiums in Columbus. We broke ground in a new stadium in Austin. Both facilities will anchor transformational projects with our clubs investing not just in their stadiums, but deeply in their respective communities. In the next few years, and this is something that is perhaps the most remarkable statistic, we will have a minimum of seven new stadiums that will be built for our league in the next few years, built at an average cost of nearly $300 million. This year, from a business perspective, we had a record 5 clubs average more than 25,000 fans per game. Our viewership was up on ESPN, Fox, and Unimas. Social media and digital engagement were the highest in our league's history, and our video content viewership grew by over 150%. And more people purchased MLS gear, both Adidas product and other product, than ever before on MLSstore.com, with sales up over 30% just this year alone. Looking forward, 5 clubs will begin play over the next 3 years in our league. Miami and Nashville will join next season, Austin in 2021, and Sacramento and St. Louis in 2022. 5 new clubs over the next couple of years. That will put us at 29 teams, and as you know, there will be a 30th. At this time, the MLS Expansion Committee is reviewing candidates. While we have no news to announce today, it is very likely that we will announce Team 30 in the next number of months. Finally, we look next year to celebrating our 25th season, really a tremendous milestone. In the months ahead, we're going to release a schedule of events and initiatives that will celebrate our rich history while expanding on the foundation that our owners, our staffs, our players, and our fans have helped us to build over the last 2 decades and a half. So thanks again for joining me here today, and now I'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, since we're in Seattle, we're going to kick it off with someone with the Seattle connection.
I hope you all took notes to what, so I could leave. And
We're gonna throw it to Matt Pence out here. If we could get Matt the microphone, and then after that we'll go to Toronto. We've got Steve Simmons here with the Toronto Sun, and then we're gonna go to Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis, the only journalist that's attended every MLS Cup, and then we'll go to Grant Wall down in front. Applause for Michael Lewis. All right. So
sorry for not recognizing you earlier, Michael. You deserve it.
Hey, Don, Matt Pence from The Athletic. This is the first time the Sounders are hosting MLS Cup, but Seattle got to host back in 2009. I was wondering if you could reflect how much, or what do you think is the biggest thing that has changed about the league throughout this decade and this time in between, and what role did the Sounders play in that transformation?
Well, it has transformed from a league on the rise to a league that has arrived as one of the great major leagues in our country, and I think existing as one of the top leagues in the world. And I say that not just because it's my opinion, it's how our attendance is ranked, it's how we're perceived by the top clubs in the world, how we're perceived by FIFA and by CONCACAF. And I don't think we would be here today if it wasn't for Seattle. I can remember attending my first game here and thinking that if we can do this in Seattle, it shows that if you go to a sophisticated soccer market and you have the right location for your stadium, you have an engaged ownership group that understands the game, you have the right technical staff, you have the right connection with supporters and marketing and managing how you're positioning your club in a marketplace, then we are going to be successful in other cities that can be positioned like this. And I used to think of it as an outlier. We used to talk about Seattle as an outlier because we were playing in a football stadium and have a strategy, and still do, to focus on soccer-specific stadiums. And I can sit here today and look at the folks from Seattle and say, without you and all the commitments that you've made and the energy that you've put behind this league, we're not the league that we are today. So my hat's off to all of you, and great gratitude.
All right, our next question will go to Steve Simmons. Why don't we grab Michael real quick, if we could?
Steve Simmons from the Toronto Sun. At a time when most of professional sport is trying to find a way to keep people in the stands, to get people in the stands, and to keep attendance on the up and up, how is it you explain the success of your league and account for the fact that you're almost going counter to what NFL and Major League Baseball and all these other leagues are fighting for at this point in time?
Well, earlier today I was on CNBC and they had asked me a similar question, and my answer there is, I think, very similar to what I'm going to say to you, Steve, which is that our league is capitalizing on the momentum that exists behind the sport of soccer in North America. And when you have owners that are focused with an enormous commitment and a vision to try to have their teams deeply embedded in the community and put a great product on the field and build great facilities and training grounds, we're basically riding this crest that I think we've helped create in many ways, but also we are capitalizing on. You add to that, both in the United States and Canada, and many, if not most of the cities where we're successful, there is a new America and a new Canada happening that's young, that's diverse, that's globally connected, it's very digital, and those are the qualities that are driving our fan base and driving the value that we have to broadcasters and to sponsors. And all of that is creating this dynamic that I think is driving our success. I will say one last thing on that. The other leagues and their success have been around for 100 years. We're still young. I think our best days are still ahead. I think the sport's growing both in the U.S. and Canada in ways that I think we're going to have to adapt to as we become more important and have even greater aspirations than where we are today. I never thought we'd be averaging 25,000 fans a game. I never thought we'd have a team that has the values they have, that we'd have the expansion fees, that we'd have the ownership groups that are coming together, that we'd have the media support and the increased audiences. These are all things that, as soccer people, we all should be proud of.
Great. We'll go to Michael Lewis with Front Row Soccer.
Hey, Don. Going to be talking about something or asking a question about New York. Sorry, not just about the whole league. I think you probably could guess what I'll be asking. It's incredible what the league has done with its soccer-specific stadiums, and including the ones here in Atlanta and in Seattle. But NYCFC is, after 5 years, is still playing in Yankee Stadium. They were forced out of the stadium because of the Yankee success, and they had to play a playoff game at Citi Field. Can you share, this is a multi-part question, could you share any details on what perhaps is coming down the road? I mean, we keep hearing bits and pieces of stories. There was a story about a Bronx planning board talking about a stadium near Yankee Stadium. How anxious are you of seeing NYCFC getting a soccer-specific stadium? And what sort of impact does it have on the league, having a major team playing in a baseball park as you enter your 25th season?
Well, you know, not everything is linear in life, certainly not in business, and it isn't in Major League Soccer. With all of the success we have issues that we need to deal with in all aspects of our business. And in New York City, we've been working hard, and the ownership group, as you know, Michael, you know them, has been working hard to try to get a solution where they can get their stadium announced and then ultimately go under construction and have a stadium that will allow NYCFC fans to be able to celebrate the game in a really large market. When we originally sold the expansion team, the thought was that we would have made more progress on a soccer stadium. A lot has happened in New York that has made it more difficult, and I have confidence that we'll be able to find a solution, and NYCFC will be able to find a solution sometime soon. I will say that as we go through this, and many of you have been around a while, there are lots of things that you go through when you're dealing with a growing league, and you got to fight the fight. You have to have patience. You have to have fortitude. You have to have some courage, and you have to be smart and nimble, and I think we've done that in almost every market. I'm confident we'll be able to do that in New York City.
All right, our next question is going to go to Grant Wall, but if I could ask your journalists if you could just kind of stick your hand up and we'll go around. We'll make sure we get Joe Tollison, Jeff Carlisle, and others. I don't know everybody's name, but we'll work on it. But we'll go to Grant Wall.
Grant Wall, Sports Illustrated. Don, you mentioned that the announcement for the 30th team could come in the next couple of months here, which suggests that you may have an idea of what that is. The people I'm talking to suggest that Charlotte is far and away the most likely candidate to get that team. I was wondering if you could comment on that and also just what Charlotte's bid brings to the table.
Sure. Well, there are three markets that we're looking at that our expansion committee has been engaged with, both Charlotte, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. And it's fair to say that Charlotte has done a lot of work to move their bid really to the front of the line. It starts with David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, who's a very passionate guy about sport, very passionate about Charlotte, and is reminding us that the league didn't really see what Atlanta would become. And I will be the first to admit that. And there's a lot of things happening in Charlotte that are very similar to things that are happening in Atlanta in terms of the diversity of their fan base and a lot of the corporate energy that's going on down there. We've been engaged with them, Grant, and we'll continue to do so. There's nothing for me to report. I think the Carolinas is a good state for soccer. You know that from a women's soccer perspective and from a youth soccer perspective. And should we be able to move forward and end up in a team in Charlotte, I'm confident it'll be successful, but nothing to report.
All right, we're going to go right down here, and then we'll go to the 3, 1, 2, 3. So if we could start, Grant. Did Grant have the microphone? Who has the microphone next? If you could hand it 2 down. And then we'll go to Jeff Carlisle after that. Then we'll go to Joe Tollison. No, we're going to, the gentleman right here. Sir?
Oh. Hey, Don. Mickey Turner from The Athletic. I wanted to ask you about some news that broke today. Ottawa Fury announced that they're no longer going to be operating in the USL because of sanctioning issues with CONCACAF. As you know, you've got 3 teams in Canada that operate outside of their domestic league. I'm wondering if you're concerned about any sanctioning issues with CONCACAF down the line if you guys have a waiver or something like that, if that were to expire.
So you're referring to the Ottawa Fury
Yes.
Not going forward because they weren't sanctioned? I hadn't read that. I read they weren't going forward, but I didn't read why they weren't going forward.
That's what their owner is indicating the reason is.
So let me just give you a couple of Canadian points, and I think it'll play in, unfortunately, to a longer answer to your question. When we went into Canada with Toronto, appropriate that we have TFC in our championship game, we really believed that Canada was going to be a great soccer country. Very sophisticated, understood the game, great media interest with Bill Bell, big partner of ours, and TVA in Quebec. Lots of sponsors interested, but most importantly, a sophisticated soccer market. That led to us expanding in Vancouver and Montreal, and I believe that our league is really driving the sport in that country. I said in 2006 at an opening press conference that our goal was to help grow the sport, both at the youth level, the sort of transitional phase, and at the first team level, and hopefully it would drive success for the Canadian national team. And certainly, having been up at the U.S.-Canada game in Toronto, it's fair to say the Canadian national team's getting a lot better. So I believe that we are a very, very important part of the Canadian soccer story, and I believe the CSA believes that. I believe CONCACAF believes that, and I'm very confident that our contributions to the sport are recognized. Whether it's about long-term sanctioning or short-term sanctioning, I have great confidence with the north of $1 billion that we've invested in our clubs, in our training grounds, in our facilities, that those three teams will be in Canada for as long as we can possibly imagine.
All right, our next question will go to Jeff Carlisle, then we'll have Joe Tollison, Paul Kennedy, and then we'll continue back here. Jeff?
Don, over here. I was wondering if you could clarify your remarks from yesterday regarding Zlatan Ibrahimovic and AC Milan.
So wait, how long that was going to take?
And as a follow-up, how important is it for the league to keep Zlatan here, given everything that he's done for the league over the last 2 seasons?
So I never made the comment that showed up in an Italian newspaper, and that's why Dan corrected that with a tweet or an article comments that he made yesterday. There has been interest in Zlatan from overseas clubs, and that's all that I had mentioned, contrary to the report that was attributed, or the quote that was attributed to me. And I think that's positive. You know, Zlatan's 38 years old. He's a great player. He's certainly a very popular guy globally. And if there's interest in Zlatan playing overseas, I think that speaks to the value that he has and some of the contributions, or kind of validates some of the contributions that he's made in our league. We're past the point, Jeff, and you've been around a long time, where the league is involved or even influential in decisions that clubs make as it relates to their designated players, just to use Zlatan as an example. The Galaxy have to decide, and Zlatan needs to decide whether it makes sense for the Galaxy and whether it makes sense for Zlatan. And I know they're having those discussions. Those discussions will reach some conclusion at some point, and then ultimately a decision will be made. I think that decision is both on the part of the Galaxy, but also on the part of Zlatan.
Hey, Don. Joe Tollison, Sirius XMFC. You answered Michael's question about New York City and the stadium there, but you also mentioned with the expansion plan, Charlotte and possibly Phoenix, which are also cities that have facilities in place already where you could play. And you commented about the attendance in Atlanta and here and now in Seattle, 142,000 over the last 2 seasons for MLS Cup in what essentially are football stadiums. So is a soccer-specific stadium mandatory for clubs, or you just need to be in the right stadium?
Well, I think it starts with where that stadium is located, and it starts with who owns the stadium. So most importantly, the success we have here in Seattle, for example, is there's a partnership between the entity that owns the Seahawks and our team, so that we don't have some of the conflicts that might exist if that didn't exist in terms of ownership. So it starts with who owns the stadium, who controls the stadium, and then it moves to where the stadium is located. And we have kind of figured out, though, there are going to be exceptions. Kansas City's a great exception. That stadium is not located in downtown Kansas City. I think they have 5 or 6 years of consecutive sellouts. So nothing is absolute. We've learned that in managing a growing league. To be clear, the conversations in Phoenix are not in the football stadium. It is a soccer-specific stadium. And in Charlotte, should we make a decision to go there, we would be looking at playing in a football stadium, but only if that stadium was going to be appropriate for what it is that we believe is important, which is to make it MLS-friendly, to make it soccer-friendly, to provide the right facilities for our players, the right camera anglers, camera positions for our broadcast partners, and all the other things that have shown in delivering success in Seattle and Atlanta.
Hi, Don, over here. Don, I believe you're the longest or one of the longest serving members of the Federation's board.
I am, by the way.
Yeah. And what concerns do you have about the current state of the Federation and its leadership, given all the issues that have arisen recently related to the search for a CEO that's gone on for a long time, the workplace issues, this understaffing at technical areas, and all the lawsuits, especially now that, you know, the World Cup 26 is going to come here faster than we realize in terms of the need to promote it?
Yeah, I don't think this is at all a leadership issue. You know, Carlos is only in the job for about a year and a half or less than 2 years, Paul, and he's as focused as any executive as I've ever seen. There certainly are issues that are swirling around the Federation that Carlos and his key staff and the board need to address. And it kind of reminds me of some of the challenges that we've had in our early years. And, you know, the sport continues to grow, and when you have growth, you've got to manage that growth. And we have been able to do that, I think, pretty effectively. I have confidence that the Federation will figure out a way to do that effectively. With success and with opportunity, you've got all sorts of people that are trying to push the envelope and maybe take advantage of that. And I think some of the lawsuits are a distraction, if you will, to the purpose of developing the game, but have to get resolved. The Federation is focused on that. And I'm confident and hopeful that we'll be able to reach some resolution.
Great. Just a reminder for our journalists, if you could state your name and affiliation, mainly for the folks who are watching on the live stream. We'll go right here. And then journalists, if you have more questions, just give me a quick wink. We'll go to Sam right after that, and Franco following that.
All right. Commissioner Masvidal Maria with CascadiaSports.net. Question is, what is your current partnership / role with U.S. Soccer, and how do you see that partnership growing?
Well, it's hard to sort of look at the MLS-U.S. Soccer relationship as a partnership in the traditional sense. I mean, there's a symbiotic relationship between the First Division League on the men's side and the First Division League on the women's side with our federation. That's no different than what exists in Germany or Italy or in any other country. We are the ones that are working every single day to grow the game from the academy level up to the First Division, spend billions of dollars on facilities, market the game, build a fan culture, create a valuable property for sponsors and broadcasters, and that's what we do every day, and that's our purpose. The Federation has got a broad mandate to make soccer the preeminent sport in the United States, and we're going to do our part to help the Federation achieve that goal. But they are in the business not only of creating broad preeminence, but also of driving success at the national team level, and we have limitations on international players in our league, which I think helps that goal, if you will. We've got $100 million of investment annually in player development that should help in that goal, and we're going to remain focused on that. So I wouldn't tire of partnership. I think of partnerships as legal agreements. I mean, but it's a marriage of shared vision and purpose.
Sam Stejskal from The Athletic. Don, the league's stated goal is to be one of the best leagues in the world by 2026. How can MLS expect to kind of close the gap in terms of quality of play enough to achieve that when the league remains significantly far behind in terms of on-field player spending?
Well, you know, this is going to be a long answer, Stan. I think we are on our path to achieve that goal, and I think we've got to be careful to not try to achieve that goal faster than is rational from a business perspective, because we've learned over the last 25 years that we have to be laser focused and systematic and strategic in how we go about growing all aspects of the league on and off the field. When our team plays in a real competitive match against Club America, which spends dramatically more than our teams do, certainly more than Atlanta does, and we could stand toe-to-toe and win that game, I think that speaks to the fact that at least we're becoming more competitive here in our region. I think we've got to start doing that before we could start thinking about how to take on the rest of the world. It's important to know that when you, Sam, are commenting about being one of the top leagues of the world, you're only thinking about it as it relates to what we're spending on players and what does that mean on the field. But the actual vision is about quality of play. It's about the relevance of our teams in their markets. It's about the relationship that we have in the community. And it's about having a rational business model. And as I follow global soccer as much as you do and read about some of the uncertainty and some of the challenges that are happening in global soccer or global football, and knowing that we are in the opposite of that, I know as it relates to how we're managing our business, we're one of the most admired leagues in the world. And I know that because I co-sit on the Council of the World League Forum. And the rest of the world, even the largest leagues in the world, look at us for good governance, for how we're going about managing the game, building facilities, and the like. So we've got to click off those 4 points one at a time or 4 consecutively, and I'm feeling pretty good about how we're doing on that path. Now, we had established ago what happened by 2022. We established that in 2010. It's part of a vision when we were trying to get the World Cup in 2022. That didn't happen. Now the World Cup's coming in 26. We haven't announced any change in that date. I'm announcing it now. Right? So we have a couple more years to try to achieve that goal. There's your news.
And fouling Franco, if you will go down here after Franco.
Franco Panizo, SBI Soccer. Don, from the outset of the league, and as far as I can remember during this decade, anytime the U.S. men's national team has had success, MLS has made it a point to talk up its influence and role in that success. The U.S. men's national team has not been very good as of late in the last few years, struggling for results consistently and failing to miss the World Cup 2 years ago. How much blame does MLS have in that?
Well, listen, Franco, I don't look at it as blame, right? I think we're all part of a soccer ecosystem here in the United States, and all of you know that we're all contributing to try to drive success both on and off the field. I have no doubt that nobody doubts the off-field success. And there are questions as to what is the league's role in driving the success of the U.S. men's national team. I'll put aside whether we're taking credit or not when it is successful. What I'll say is we are very prideful when the U.S. national team is successful because it speaks to how well the whole, as it relates to the men, the whole ecosystem is working and operating. As it relates to the current challenges, it really isn't an issue until we get into qualifying. I have confidence in Greg Berhalter. I thought he was a great MLS coach. I was supportive as a board member of him being hired. He's got to find his way with his players. He's got a young group of players. Right now, everybody's looking at day-to-day performance. We've got an important match coming up in Orlando. And by the way, if you're a U.S. soccer fan and you're living in Florida, go to that game and support the men's national team, which is young and hopefully will be competitive in that match. So I think all of us are trying to do what we can to ensure that the team can become more successful. But we're not picking the players. We're not hiring the coach. We're not picking the stadiums where they're playing. And all we can really do is contribute in the ways that leagues contribute to, their federations or to their FAs. I think we're over-delivering on that, Franco. I have no doubt that whether it's Carlos or the Federation Board or you as, media pundits, the role that the league is playing in helping to grow the sport here. And one aspect of that is the performance of the men's national team.
All right, we're going to go to my left over here with the next question.
Hi, Christian Polanco from the Cooligans. Don, I'm curious about the CBA negotiations and where do you feel the league sort of is and how those negotiations are going to go. We've seen like a lot of the players seem very unified. So if you could take the temperature, how do you feel those negotiations are going to go?
Just comment on the players have never not been unified. They should be. All unions should be unified, and all management groups and ownership groups should be unified. The only way you get, a shared purpose in trying to reach an agreement that works for players and for management is to have unification. And I speak a lot about that around our board table. So I'm not going to comment on any of the comments the players or the union has made publicly. I would expect that they're going to be very focused, as we are. And you should know, and I think everybody does, this is not our first rodeo as it relates to CBA negotiations, and not their first rodeo. We've all been together a long time. We're going to engage deeply in thoughtful negotiations. We're going to understand what their issues are. I think the players and their union understand what our issues are, and we're going to work hard, as hard as we possibly can to get to an agreement. Everybody should know that the last number of agreements, and I've been involved along with Mark Abbott on every one, they're never easy to finalize. But we all believe in this league. We love the league. We all understand what the issues are, and I have confidence that when we get down into the final negotiations, we'll all do what we need to do to try to reach an agreement. And we're all prepared to manage that if we don't.
All right, our next question, we're going to go down here to Max Brados, journalist once again. We'll go to Max, and then right back here.
Hello, Don. Max Brados, LAFC. With the shifting of the season, we've been told it's going to be a February start, October finish. When will we know more about those dates, and what does that mean for the MLS play postseason at the end of the 2020 campaign?
I think we're going to announce, Mark, when are we going to announce our new schedule? Yeah, so, we're working on television windows, and by the way, we're going to have the best television windows and the best media coverage with our broadcast partners in the history of the league. And we're excited about the announcement of what that will look like when the time comes. Our schedule continues to shift around a bit. Years and years ago, we used to get criticized for that. I think with the success of our playoffs this year, you understand that we're going to continue to do what we need to do regardless of changes that need to be made to ensure we have the best competitive format. And as our league continues to grow, and is growing, and we have more and more teams, we're going to have the ability to even take a look at that. And what does our competition look like? We have a very engaged group of chief soccer officers. Some of them are sitting here in the front row. The process starts with them. Years ago, it didn't. It started in a league office, in a boardroom. Now starts with those folks that are dealing with the competition every single day. And then it bounces up to our product strategy committee. They work, managed by Mark and Todd Durbin, and then ultimately we'll sit down and meet with our board about it. We should be able to finalize at least the future thinking on our schedule and the schedules for the years to come at our December board meeting.
I'm going to go over here to my left for the next question.
Alexis Guerreros of the Cooligans as well. I have a question regarding the relationship between MLS and Liga MX. From the past few months, it seems like there's a lot of flirting going on between them. Maybe that's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. Between the two. Where do we see as we get closer to the U.S., Mexico, Canada World Cup, what do you think the relationship is going to be like between both leagues? Do we see the rumor of a unified league potentially getting going? What are your thoughts on that?
It starts with, it's rare for any business to have a 6-year defined moment, right? So next year, we'll have 6 years leading up to something. We know exactly what will happen, when it will happen, and other than the teams participating, what it will look like. And if you think about your own media companies, my guess is you probably don't know where your company will be in 2026, right? So we do. We know we're going to have the World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So we're working hard to figure out how do we as a league, and I would say the Federation is thinking about the same thing, capitalize on all that momentum leading up to this spectacular event. One of the things that we've been thinking about and testing, which we do regularly as it relates to all sorts of things that we do, is how do we create a competition that is meaningful, that could create more attention, that could take the two leagues that at least are driving a lot of the value in terms of attendance and revenue and media coverage and media partnerships in CONCACAF to create more value for the whole region. And that's what led to the inaugural Leagues Cup, which you should imagine will probably expand next year. It led to the Campeones Cup, which was a spectacular success. And I think you're going to see more and more work done between us, Liga MX, and CONCACAF to figure out what could that look like in the years ahead. I will say, as a friend of Victor Montagliani and somebody who I have great respect for, CONCACAF has got a lot of opportunity in front of them. You think about the power of the other confederations and what they're able to do and how that value can be delivered down to clubs and how that can be delivered down to grow the game in their respective markets. If CONCACAF can generate more revenue, if it can become more popular, then all of the members of the CONCACAF region, not just MLS and Liga MX, but the other members in Central America and the Caribbean will benefit by that. And that's part of what's driving our desire to do something bigger, perhaps more valuable with Liga MX.
And just a reminder, the winner of Sunday's MLS Cup will host Campeones Cup third quarter of next year. Next question will go down here to my right.
Michael McCall, AFTN. Following on actually about CONCACAF, we could be in a position on Sunday where the MLS champions could be Toronto and they would not be able to play in the CONCACAF League next year. Is there any indication that the league in the future might talk to CONCACAF or the US Federation to ensure that the MLS champion will always have a berth in that competition?
You know, I wasn't aware of this. I should have been. I wasn't aware of this till I was in a CONCACAF meeting last week. And it was something that was set up when we had our first teams in Canada. And it is something that I personally think we should talk to U.S. Soccer about. It does seem odd to me that our champion shouldn't get an automatic berth into the Champions League, whether it's in Canada or it's in the United States. But to be fair, I wasn't aware of it until a week ago. But we'll sit down with U.S. Soccer and see if there's anything that can be done, and I don't know that there will be.
Next question will continue here to my right with Nicolas.
Nicolas Martineau, TVA Sport. Mr. Commissioner, I asked you the same question last year, but as the relationship progressed with CPL and the commissioner up there, Mr. Clanahan, and if so, how has it progressed since last year?
We really don't have a relationship with the CPL at all. And I think that's a missed opportunity for the sport of soccer in Canada. But having been involved in MLS in the earliest days, it's really hard to launch a sports league, right? And really, really hard to launch a soccer league. So right now, I think the CPL was very focused on trying to get their teams launched and get rosters together and get the right competitive environment, to get the right facilities. And at the right time, we'll figure out what that looks like. But I said this in my opening remarks in answer to one of the questions. I think it's important that professional soccer continues to grow in Canada. And I think you've seen in a very short period of time with so many great players that have either come out of MLS academies or playing in MLS teams, Canadian MLS teams, that if we continue to remain focused and the CPL grows, then the Canadian national team on the men's side will get better. And I think that's an important objective of us all.
I'm going to go back over to my left to Joe Tollison with SiriusXM.
Thanks, Don, to follow up on your answer on the CBA, when you said that you'll have a plan in place in case you can't work things out, I don't want to infer anything, so I'd rather just ask, is there a possibility of a work stoppage?
Well, Joe, anytime you're involved in any negotiation, you've got to go manage what your North Star is, getting a deal done, and then figure out what you do if you don't. And I've been thinking about that, and everybody I work with thinks about that every single day, not just on CBA negotiations. If you're not prepared for what happens when you don't achieve your goals, then you're going to be on your heels. So in CBA negotiations, all leagues, all clubs have to prepare for what happens in the event of a work stoppage. So our clubs have done that. The league has organized that. By the way, no different than any other league. We would be prepared in the event of a work stoppage to be able to manage through whatever delay or stoppage in the season there would be. But that is not even remotely close to an objective, and it's not something that we're thinking about, just something that we're preparing for. We're very focused on getting a deal done. We think that's in the best interest of our players, best interest of our teams and our league, and all of us are very, very focused on that and trying to be very thoughtful to really understand the issues that exist between the league and its clubs. And I will say the conversations have been very productive. The environment and the negotiating environment is quite positive, more positive than it has been over the last number of negotiations, in spite of some of the comments that I've read over the last couple of days. The environment's been, has been productive.
All right, our next question will go to Ivis Scholarship right down here, then right behind Ivis, and we probably have time for one more after that. Ivis?
Ivis Scholarship, SBI Soccer. Don, it's been 20 years. When you took over, there were 12 teams. We got down to 10. Now we're closing in on 30. how far away are we from the league moving away from the single entity structure? Is that on the horizon? Is that a possibility? It's got to be tough trying to handle a league with that many owners, that many front offices. I've heard a lot of complaints from within the league, from officials about that. It's too many teams for the league to kind of handle. Is that something we will see at any point?
So I'm not quite sure what that means, but I know you well enough, so I'll try to explain what I think you're saying, right? So the single entity is not something that has anything to do with league control. It has to do with owner control. The single entity, and everybody here should understand this, single entity is a corporate structure that basically has our owners, partners in a business. And those partners come together and they say, in this business, we'd like the league office to do this. They could as easily say, tomorrow, we'd like the league office to do something entirely different. And throughout our history, Ives, and you know this, you've been around almost as long as I have, we've evolved what it is that the league does. In the past, in the early days of the league, and it was before I joined, there was an original contemplation that the league would sign all the coaches and general managers. And why was that? Because they didn't think at that time that there was an understanding, enough of a soccer culture and soccer expertise and a soccer infrastructure to be able to have people that understood it. And today, you look around, there are lots of really, really smart people that are able to contribute to the strategic decision-making that we make. It leads to when we come up with TAM, or we come up with a designated player, it's not the league sitting in New York saying that we're going to do this. It's research telling us what we're trying to think about, and then it's trying to come up with things that we could do together to achieve our goals. And will there be a point where the roster rules change? Because I think that's what you're talking about. Perhaps, but only when all of our owners get together and all of our chief soccer officers get together and all the people that are doing research, trying to get an understanding of what our fans want, will come together and say, we'd like to have a system that looks differently. So the questions that we get asked, or what I read on social media about it, is just a real misunderstanding as to what the structure is all about. I will say, think about 5 teams being onboarded over the next number of years. There is never a time that we need to have more focus to organize what the onboarding of all those teams are and trying to create so that you don't have new teams that don't have the ability to be successful, create all the energy to assist those clubs to be better. Right now, the league is spending less time engaged on approving player transactions, and now maybe more time working with them to see how they can improve their overall business operations or their technical operations, or helping them with research, fan research and marketing research, sponsorship sales. All of that is driven by our entity, because our entity, this partnership, allows us to be able to do that. I'll say this as somebody who's my 34th year in pro sports. If you were to start any of the big leagues today, they'd be starting with this structure. And it was started by a bunch of folks that own teams in all those leagues. And I know that because as I go around our board table, they own baseball teams, hockey teams, NFL teams, they own, NBA teams, and they all know the streamlined strategic focus of our system versus the other systems that exist in these other leagues.
All right,
that's my answer to that.
We're going to go right behind Ives to my left. Then we're going to go in the back, and we'll come back here, and we'll wrap it up with Jada with the Seattle Times.
Hey, Don, Rick May with the Seattle Sports Commission. You might have answered this a little bit earlier, but I want to clarify. You talked about other leagues outside of the country looking at us and coming to you and saying, how are you guys doing it? And we're a source of inspiration. We have World Cup coming in 2026. We have our friends to the north in Canada, our friends to the south in Mexico. It seems like we have a great opportunity to unite and have one type of cup that all 3 of us in the Americas are playing for, to show the world that it can be done and breaks down some of these barriers. Any thought to that?
What do you mean by one type of cup?
One cup, and you've got CONCACAF, but maybe there's an America's Cup between Canada, America, and South America, that we could show that we're united in what we're doing and really drive support for what's coming in 2026.
Well, somebody asked a question about U.S. soccer and what MLS's role in that. We're one league in this big region, CONCACAF region. At the end of the day, CONCACAF really is responsible for the competitions, even club competitions that are exist in this region. Victor Montagliani will play a key role in the World Cup, as will Carlos and Steve Reed and Jan de Luis, so the guys the gentleman that runs the Mexican FA. And ultimately, we're all going to try to do everything we can as a region to make the sport more popular. We've got to take advantage, and it's why FIFA granted the World Cup to this region, take advantage of all the energy and all the value that exists in this part of the world. I can tell you, if you hear Gianni Infantino's quotes, or you hear Alex Sefrin's quotes, you hear the quotes of all the teams that are looking to set up shop here, this is one of the real drivers, one of the engines that's leading sort of the energy behind the sport globally. And the World Cup is something we ought to be able to capitalize on. I don't know that that's an MLS task. It is a CONCACAF task, and I think Victor will be very, very focused on that.
Joseph Lowry with the Total Soccer Show. Don, earlier you mentioned Major League Soccer's working relationship with USL. What is your vision for that future working relationship with USL, and what needs to happen in order to make that a reality?
I am really impressed by what the USL has done over the last number of years. It speaks to, there's lots and lots of interest and energy behind what's happening with MLS Cup. 70,000 fans and what will be a record gate for Major League Soccer. The energy behind it with our media partners and sponsors. But if you take a look below us at the USL, there's a lot of positive things going on. And the pyramid is getting built. So to the question, I don't remember who asked the question, on a bunch of questions on the U.S. Development of the men's national team. If we have not just 30 MLS teams, but you add to that 100 other professional teams at different levels, we ought to be able to develop a better national team. Now, that's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time, but the USL is focused on that. I am absolutely astounded by and impressed by some of the developments that are going on in the USL. It's a credit to Alec Papadakis and to his ownership groups and the way they've been organizing it. And I think that, like us, their best days are still ahead.
Our next question will go down here to the middle.
Commissioner Garber, Mara Moat from the Seattle Sports Commission. I'd love to get your thoughts on MLS Works Greener Goals initiative. With the 50th anniversary of Earth Day coming up in 2020, this year you've offset a fair amount of emissions with travel. Are there any escalated initiatives that you're prepared to talk about today or preparing to talk about for 2020?
Well, I can't talk about them today, and not for any reasons of keeping them secret, just because we're in the process of developing what our annual plans will be for MLS Works going forward. I think it's important to note that in our earliest days, when we were really struggling, we still were focused on MLS Works. I believe that our sport is unique in that it comes out of the community. And our teams, even when we were struggling to sell tickets and were really challenged to figure out how to make sense of it, our players and our teams were doing the same types of programs then that they're doing today. They're just doing more of them and investing even more than they have in the years ago. Greener Goals is important. We love it because our league needs to take some responsibility for what's happening on our planet. It's not just about soccer games. It's how can we improve the lives of those people that live in the communities where we have our clubs. It's one our fans have told us matters to them because we've done some research on what kinds of programs, grassroots programs matter, and the environment is one of them. And I think you're going to see more investments in that in the years to come.
Great. We'll wrap it up with our final question.
Hi, Jade Evans with the Seattle Times. I wanted to ask a follow-up on the Iron Front band and where you guys are at with as far as communicating with the supporters groups on that.
Well, the latest is that there have been meetings led by our Deputy Commissioner and MLS President Mark Abbott with the Independent Supporters Council. They were very productive meetings. Those meetings have basically been discussions about what we need to do to ensure that we could manage our ban on the Iron Front flag in ways that are going to be more effectively accepted by our supporters and positioned in a way that would be allow us to have rules that would be acceptable not just in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest but throughout our league. These are challenging issues, and they're new issues for all of us in business and all of us certainly in the sports business. The discussions have been productive. They were very professional. I was very pleased to see how everybody came to the table to try to come up with a solution. We have rescinded the ban on the Iron Front flags in our league until we've come to some agreement. We've hired and not hired, but engaged with thought leaders on that collectively to give us the counsel that we need to ensure we make the right decisions. And that work will continue through the rest of our off season with a policy that I'm confident will be mutually acceptable in 2020.
Great. With that, we're going to conclude today's press conference. We appreciate you all joining us today, and encourage you to attend the media mixer tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.